Steven's Sausage Roll. Steven's Sausage Roll is a single-player puzzle video game for the PC, created by Steven Lavelle and developed by Incompare Games, released worldwide on April 18, 2016. This game, I believe, is an excellent example of a puzzle game. Its puzzles are highly challenging, demanding mental skills like lateral thinking and at times, mental endurance, especially since you need to remember what seems like a nigh infinite number of operative actions available to you that you can use to solve the puzzles. Compound this by the fact that the game never explicitly teaches you these actions and their associated rules, and you have yourself a very difficult puzzle game indeed. So, this game perfectly caters to gamers who tend to fall under challenge in the mastery category in the gamer motivation model. Those gamers will most definitely get the challenge they look for in games in Steven's Sausage Roll, experiencing fun playing it in the form of intellectual problem solving. Now, how does this game manage to be so difficult but be so fun at the same time? The major way it does this is by taking full advantage of a flow state, where there is an optimal progression of difficulty to suit the player's increasing skill in the game, as to not overwhelm them if it's too difficult, or conversely bore them if it's too easy. The game works like this. You start in the game's largest space, we'll call the overworld, only having access to later parts of it once you have completed a certain set of puzzles in a smaller space of this overworld, we'll call the area. So, when a player enters the puzzle, the overworld space shrinks to just that puzzle space, the unnecessary platforms and objects sinking into the water. Then, within each puzzle, the objective is to cook both sides of all sausages by pushing them around with Steven, your player character, using the directional keys, navigating them through this three-dimensional, discrete, grid-based space over to these grills. Then you must exit the puzzle space to complete it. Losing conditions include burning a sausage when you cook a side more than once, or losing a sausage by pushing it off into the water. Now, even these fundamental rules of the game are not explicitly taught to you, save for one sign that indicates the game controls. For example, you learn the aforementioned losing conditions the hard way when the game exclaims to you like this. And you're not even told you need to grill the sausages, which actually I believe is a bit of a flaw because you shouldn't have to figure out what you need to do to solve the puzzle, just how to solve it. I guess you can argue that there's enough systemic affordance when you see the uncooked sausage and grill on the same screen, signaling to you that you need to grill them, but I don't think that argument is compelling enough. The puzzle objective should be completely explicit. In any case, each area in the game focuses on teaching you specific operative actions, because there are loads of them. While your controls are only moving up, down, left, or right, these allow you to also do things like stabbing sausages to carry them, walking on top of them to roll on them, carrying them on top of your head to rotate them, disattaching your fork, and even moving whole platforms. It's remarkable how this game's small set of controls manages to give rise to so many different operative actions. We can thank the game's set of in-depth constitutive rules for that. So, the first area is the most important, as it teaches the player the most fundamental rules. First of all, Steven actually occupies two squares in the grid, one for Steven himself and the other for his fork. This makes him slightly trickier to control. That's why in the first area, puzzles are set in extremely small spaces to force the player to always be thinking about each move as dictated by Steven's unique occupancy attribute. The first area also teaches the player a handful of advisory rules. For example, you should always try to keep the entire sausage within the grid boundary of a puzzle space to allow you to move it further back into the space for later use. Otherwise, if a sausage overhangs like this, you can only push it away and you can never move it back further into the puzzle space again. Again, you're not explicitly told this, rather it's something revealed through play. Other rules taught like this include the fact that the side of a sausage does not need to be cooked all at once, teaching you that this is a possible state for the sausage's cooked attribute to assume, and that while stepping on a grill forces you to instantly go backwards after, that this attribute can actually still be used to move sausages around. Now, once all the puzzles in an area are complete, a sausage is revealed in the overworld space, and this sausage can be used to traverse to the next area in the overworld. Then, this teaching pattern continues for the next areas. The second area teaches the player about stabbing sausages with your fork and carrying them around until you pull your fork out. You can't turn while carrying a stabbed sausage, and there's no way to remove a sausage from your fork stabbed like this, effectively a losing condition. And you can do interesting things with this action like moving other sausages with a stabbed sausage as shown in this puzzle, Twisty Farm. The only problem of Area 2 is that this puzzle, the Great Tower, shouldn't be here because it uses operative actions the player will only learn about in the next two areas. Anyway, the third area is all about walking on top of and rolling on sausages. Walking perpendicular to their long side makes you roll backwards, and conversely walking parallel keeps it in place. This puzzle, Cold Ladder, does an excellent job teaching that to the player because you are forced to move the sausages by only rolling on them in order to finally gain access to this ladder, making absolutely sure you know how this operative action and its associated rules work. You'll even have to deal with rolling sausages on sausages like in this puzzle, Cold Gate. Things in this area to critique though are the puzzles Cold Finger and Cold Frustration, as they require the player to make use of this operative action only taught to you in the next area. So, moving on, the fourth area introduces carrying sausages on top of Steven himself. Rotating with the sausage on top of your head also rotates the sausage, whereas rotating with the sausage on top of your fork simply lets it fall. You can also move under other objects to displace any sausages on top of you, usually using tall structures like this object here, giving the player a consistent visual clue, improving the game's aesthetic appeal. Then comes the fifth area with a new operative action, where getting your fork caught in an object while standing on top of a falling sausage removes it from Steven, changing the state of his occupancy attribute as to allow him to traverse spots that would normally be too narrow. One very clever but truthfully slightly unfair puzzle in this area is Crater, as it requires you to stab a sausage like this to solve it, when the game has taught you back in Area 2 that this is an effective losing condition. Though, I guess you could say it's fair in the sense that it requires from the player the mental skill to truly think outside the box and try unconventional things. But I still think it's unfair. A better puzzle is Drumlin. This puzzle is fantastic because you combine knowledge from Areas 2, 3, and this current one 5 to figure out that you need to position your fork like this and roll on a sausage to push it and have it stab the other sausage so you can retrieve it like so. This is a wonderful example of combining multiple operative actions requiring high mental skill from the player. Anyway, we come to the final area. Remember how the overworld space shrinks every time you enter a puzzle? Well, overworld sausages can actually be used to prevent objects from falling into the water during this animation, so you can use them and these platforms and move both of them around in the actual puzzle space. Rules arising from this new operative action include platforms falling off rolling sausages, and how the platforms move when you move the sausages like this, versus how the platform is stationary when you stand on it, so instead the sausages roll by themselves like this. You can even turn so that your fork pushes away from other objects, resulting in the platform you're currently standing on to move, as wonderfully demonstrated in this puzzle, the backbow. Again, none of this is explicitly taught to the player, it's all taught through play. Because this game manages to curve out its difficulty so well, coupled with important anti-frustration features like unlimited undos, puzzle resets, and exits, the player is never really overwhelmed. This is why complex puzzles, especially in the late game, that combine all the operative actions you've learned so far can exist and are still fair. For example, the puzzle Apex first requires knowledge of rolling on top of sausages and walking off of them, which you've learned back from Area 3. Then, you must move an object using a stab sausage, like you did back in this puzzle Twisty Farm in Area 2. Then, knowledge from Area 4 about displacing objects on top of your head is used. Notice how these objects here are tall like the ones back in Area 4 I mentioned earlier, as to further indicate to the player that knowledge from that area is needed. Finally, knowledge from Areas 3 and 4 is required so you can figure out that you need to carry the block on your head while rolling on top of the sausage, again this object being a visual hint, before finally using the latest knowledge about moving other objects on top of the sausages to put the block on top of the sausage to roll it off so you can exit the puzzle space like so. So that's how the game's puzzles work effectively for each other. Of course, the individual puzzles deserve high praise too. Puzzles in this game are challenging because they often mislead the player. This is quite clearly seen in this Area 1 puzzle, the Clover. The sausages are set up like this, making the player assume they can simply click the sausages by moving them like so. But when the player tries to exit the level, they'll end up burning one of the sausages if they try to maneuver between them. The player will have to figure out that you actually need to do this. I just think it's fantastic how much mental skill in the form of lateral thinking is required from the player to solve really any puzzle in this game. And that is why Steven's Sausage Roll is the puzzle game exemplary of its genre. It requires the player to muster a huge amount of mental skill to solve its puzzles, but it requires little physical skill because you only have directional controls, as to not detract from the main mental challenge. In fact, I think the limited controls is what makes the game so mentally challenging, because it's up to you to discover all those diverse operative actions included in the game through experimentative and lateral thinking. And this challenge feels fair because the game effectively implements the flow state, progressively and slowly teaching the player its million operative actions along with their associated rules and further nuances. So, did this masterfully designed game get the success it deserved? Well, it's more of a cult hit than anything. While it did make it to the PC Games of the Year category of the Edge Awards 2016, it didn't quite get any more popular than that. I do think the game indeed has blatant problems that led to this. Firstly, it's very expensive for what it is. It's around $30 on Steam, and yes, while you will spend a lot of time playing this game because there's a huge number of puzzles, hard puzzles I mean, I myself have clocked in 36 hours in total and haven't even finished the game yet, I still don't think that justifies that high of a price. At the end of the day, it's still just an indie puzzle game with no other side content. Secondly, this game's simplistic graphics admittedly won't engage first-time seers of it. It has low aesthetic appeal in the visual sense. Yes, this game doesn't and shouldn't need to have absolutely amazing graphics because that would just distract the player from its main focus of the puzzle-solving gameplay. In fact, this game does a good job of optimally using its minimal graphics, like using a sort of fog effect to indicate the player's location on the z-axis of a three-dimensional space, and not using catchy and bombastic music during gameplay as to not distract the player from their intense state of concentration. However, there are still problems like these gaps looking like obstacles when they purely only function cosmetically, and the lack of shadows making perspective slightly unclear, like in this puzzle Baby Swan, where having this platform land on that sausage to the right is made difficult due to the awkward perspective. Thank goodness for unlimited undos. Furthermore, this game's official trailer, which only came out the day before the game's launch by the way, is just this. It doesn't showcase the game's main appeal, its puzzle-solving gameplay. In fact, it only highlights the game's weakness, the graphics. I understand that this is a cinematic trailer rather than a gameplay trailer, but this is an indie game with a limited budget, so I believe the developers should have opted for the latter instead of the former if they had to choose one. Of course, people probably won't want to buy this game after seeing this trailer. More importantly, they wouldn't even know what game type this game falls under from this trailer, and it just doesn't look good. Additionally, this game's official website isn't very pretty either. The most descriptive page is the About page, which doesn't actually describe the gameplay, it's more of a joke page. There's a screenshot page, but it still doesn't quite accurately depict the gameplay, and 2 of the 6 screenshots only show the transition animation effects, probably the least important part of the gameplay. In general, this game was poorly marketed. It had a truly ineffective distribution model. Needless to say, this game doesn't appeal to the masses, but the people who have played it all love it, including myself. Because yes, this game is still a great game, and you can tell it most likely had a good production strategy. This game isn't very popular, but it's still critically acclaimed, averaging at a 91.25% on reviews according to GameRankings.com. This isn't surprising really. While this game's marketing was suboptimal, it's still an excellently designed puzzle game. It's just that not many people like it, but few do love it. And in that sense, this game is an overwhelming success. Thanks for watching.